Okay, so here's a problem. This is a very easy problem. And it says read 3 numbers, add them together, and print the total. Okay, so what are my nouns? What are my nouns here? Nouns and adjectives, 3 numbers, total, okay? And what are my verbs? Add, read, print. So if I actually underline the nouns, and I said 3 numbers and I underlined that, and I took total and underlined that, there's the first step towards my input and my output, okay? So where do you think total goes? Yeah, does everybody agree the total comes over here under output? Now what about 3 numbers? Well, we're going to have to think smarter here. We're not going to say 3 numbers. Instead, what are we going to say? Who said it? Num1, num2, num3. So I'm going to take 3 numbers and break that into 3 different variables, and where should that be? Input or output? Why do you know that? How come you're so smart? Says read. Says read, and that's input. So there is what my first step in my IPO would look like, num1, num2, num3. My next step is total, and I just now have done the input-output part, okay? So what's left is processing, which is to handle the verbs, okay? So let's go back and find the verbs, which we already identified. I bolded them. Read, add, and print, okay? So I'm not going to, read is one of my nouns, my verbs, sorry. Read is one of my verbs. But rather than saying 3 numbers, what should I say with read? Yeah, I like that better. Read, num1, num2, num3. Okay? Now, I wrote calculate total. And then I wrote display total. Display total is easy, or I could have said print. I usually use calculate for the main work part, because why? What am I doing here again? I forget. What phase am I in here? Well, I'm in processing, but in the software development lifecycle, what phase am I in? No, not yet. I'm in problem analysis. I'm defining the problem. Try to restrain yourself and don't solve this sucker yet. We'll solve it later. Okay, I know you want to solve it. Don't do it here. Okay? We're just defining the problem. Okay? This is the complete IPO for this problem. And this is what we'll be working on for your homework and through Thursday before we get the tools to solve these guys. Okay? Questions so far? Questions so far? Kayla? So yeah, you only need to do it. This is just saying, what are my inputs? What are my outputs? You should only need them once. Okay? Now, one other tip before, and I'll start with this next on Thursday too as well. Let's take a look at the processing steps for a second. And let's see if we can find something really funny about this. Funny, haha. In step 1, where we say read num1, num2, and num3, what are we kind of doing? What are we kind of doing? Are we inputting? Is this an input step? Read num1, num2, and num3? Is this an input step? Say yes. Yes, we are inputting in step 1, correct? We're reading num1, num2, and num3. In step 2, what are we kind of doing? Processing. And in step 3, what are we kind of doing? So not only is this an IPO diagram, but our processing steps often, not always, I'm going to swear for the rest of my life that every single one is, but our processing steps often look like input, process, output. Get the stuff, do something with the stuff, and display it back to the screen. Input, process, output. Not a bad starting point. Not everything will be that way, but a lot of them will. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so if there's no other questions, is it possible to put these back in alphabetical